How do you build an engaging brand that wins over its customers, employees, and even harshest critics? Today, you'll learn about brand engagement and why it's so important if you want to grow fast.
And when you have these dips and processes, you wonder why. It's because the user was supposed to be at the front stage and not in the middle, or definitely not at the last.
In this episode of Growing Brands, we'll talk about the basics of brand engagement, how to measure it, and how to find the few brand touchpoints that are capable of creating rapid growth for your company. Plus, we've got special guest and user engagement expert Taye Johnson to share her approach for measuring how people interact with technology and what impact it has on the perceptions of a brand. Brand engagement simply is the act of making contact with a brand. Given this broad definition, brand engagement constitutes a practically limitless list of activities that one can participate in with a brand, also called touchpoint. Here are 10 examples of brand touchpoints: interacting with company employees, visiting a company's website or blog, exchanging DMs with the brand's handle on Twitter or Instagram, commenting on the brand's Facebook page, using the company's app, applying for a job at the company, visiting a brick and mortar store, billboards, digital ads, direct mail, etc., attending a branded event, and finally, talking to somebody about a brand. And as someone with limited resources, you probably want to know which touch points to invest in if you want the brand to grow as fast as possible. Good question. It isn't feasible to invest in every form of brand engagement and every touch point possible. And so it becomes really important to know which ones contribute most to the business goals. Conceptually, we need to study how people feel about our brands on 3 levels. First, what does the brand do for them, i.e. utility? Second, what does the brand say about them to other people, i.e. perception and status? And third, how does our brand help them relative to the other brands in this space, i.e. competitive? In practice, this is where machine learning and AI represent a huge opportunity. The most sophisticated analytics programs all use this basic formula. First, make every brand touchpoint possible measurable and send it to a big database. Second, use machine learning to learn which touchpoints are most associated with business outcomes like new users, active users, revenue, and profit. Next, create and test models for what happens when you adjust these different factors. And then finally, use all of the resulting data and insights to invest in marketing strategies, channels, campaigns, and tactics. Okay, we know engagement is important and how to leverage it, but how do we measure each and every touch point? For that, we reached out to Taye Johnson, an advisory board member at the City University of New York Tech Prep program. Taye is also the data analytics manager at Eidolon, the community coordinator at the New York City chapter of Women in Data, a facilitator of Google's #IamRemarkable initiative, and member of Badassery. This is what she said. How do websites and applications influence how people feel about a company or brand ultimately?
Honestly, I feel like this is one of those trick questions that can either be very technical or very much business-like. And for me as a technologist, there's a lot of different ways that we are able to use KPIs in order to make sure that users are actively engaged, but we also need to know, what are we looking for? Like, you have to know what you want to track first before you build any type of foundation. So if you want to make sure that your brand is recognizable just from an image, that's something that you have to be very mindful of doing. And it usually is your logo. And there are very distinct logos that we have within our cabinet, for example, that we are able to identify with from an early age. And depending on how marketing is set up, if you continue to see a logo over time, you become curious. That was something that was done on purpose. But again, that has to be set as in, hey, we want to make sure that our brand is recognizable no matter where you are within the world. So I think a lot of times it's more of I feel familiar with the brand because my mom used it when I was a kid. There's a lot of things that can factor into what we think about a user using a particular brand or company.
That's excellent information. So how do you identify the moments that matter most to consumers or the brand?
I would have to say for me, again, from a more technical perspective, we always think about conversion rates, and we always think about who comes back to our platform, because one times we have areas where things will fall off in terms of a user will be really engaged and we got them and we get so excited, and then we're like, somewhere along the process they dropped off. So we always think about why did someone drop off and how can we get them back? And you see things like reward programs are always thinking about how can we have an incentive to kind of guide our users so that they feel like that we're not just this one-off company that they only see very rarely. So a lot of things that we have within tech is geared around making sure that we can have active engagement for a long time period. And when we see those drops in engagement, we try to filter in ways to bring people back onto our platform so that we can continue to have engagement.
Yeah, I love that concept of looking at engagement and using that as a way to kind of translate to how people are feeling about the brand or how they're engaging with the brand. So what advice do you have for people who want to set up an analytics program that can effectively measure brand and user engagement kind of within a company?
I would have to say for analytics program, now this is going against all of the things I've learned in coding boot camps. You never ever want to think about building any type of system without having the user in mind. Or when I think about myself as a user, what am I going to get from a platform? And a lot of analytic programs are not built that way. It's like, what do we need to do for the business? How are we going to make money? Very rarely do people think about the user as a first step. I always think about solving problems from the issue first and working backwards. And for an analytics program, you have to be the same way. We can already identify the things that we will want to track. That's fine, but why are we doing it? It's the why aspect of user engagement, of building software development apps. Like there's so many different elements that kind of fall on the back burner. And when you have these dips and processes, you wonder why. It's because the user was supposed to be at the front stage and not in the middle, or definitely not at the last.
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't have said it better myself. Taye, thank you so much for your time and expertise. Really appreciate it. If you like this episode, then take a few seconds to follow or subscribe to this channel, or head over to branddata.com to download our mega list of brand touchpoints for handy reference. Okay, now it's your turn. Which brand touchpoints are most important to your brand? How does brand engagement influence your marketing strategy, operations, and tactics? Let me know by leaving a comment real quick before you leave. Is it recording? Should you, oh boy. Just be, mixed message. Why can't I say that? Flank steaks. Oh, you script thingy. Would you go back in time and make sure that I didn't say it that way? Thank you.